assessor, they gotta do all this. What are you gonna do so that next year when you go through this budget, you can present a plan that all 5 people can agree on that says the county will take this function over, and instead of $200,000, it's only gonna cost us 50, 75, or 200? Are we gonna have an actual plan on next year's budget is what I'm asking for that $200,000 reduction? Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. There are 3 components to answer your question. First is, a couple of years ago, when the county allocated $60,000 to consolidate, there was an affirmative interest by the county to take over those duties at that time. That's why they budgeted for it. That proposal was voted down 3-2 by this town board. I favored it because there's a town tax assessor, there's a town tax department, there's a county tax department. That's one too many. This year, as I mentioned, I had budgeted $25,000 in my draft. The county has a $50,000 plus or minus a $50,000 grant to study consolidation with the towns, not just southeast, but also southeast. And as I understand it, and I can't speak for the new county executive who's coming in, but there are members of the legislature who are interested, and the incoming county executive had expressed an interest too in consolidation. And the New York State Office of Real Property Services in Albany recommends consolidation by the municipalities at the county level. All of us, I believe, all of us recognize the opportunity for savings. The savings in Southeast would, I estimate, in around $222,000 savings as reflected in my first draft budget. And the third component was we have 2009 and the interest rate of county. We have $50,000 grant, and the third component is if we reside in a hold harmless community. In other words, if there's a shortfall in the town tax revenues, then the county reimburses us for that, and the county collects. And with respect to the tax receiving department, if we pull the plug on that right now, then by law, the county would have to step up to the plate, as I mentioned earlier, and perform tax receiving services.
Right, and the tax receiver makes money for the town.
Collects money.
Yes, Andy.
I have a quick question.
$100,000 in fines this year.
Excuse me, people? I can't hear myself, sir. I remember a meeting a number of months ago where Councilwoman Hudak had asked a question regarding that thing came up with the air conditioning in here, and that in this room there's a problem, and that some money needed to be found for it. And she raised the question at that time about the unexpended fund balance that was created for this building. Okay, and you stated at that time that that money had already been used in the 2010 budget. And I'd like to know how that money all of a sudden reappeared so that it can be used in the 2011 budget.
Andy, I don't have a recollection of that particular point. I believe.
The train
Thank
left
you.
the station.
The train. That's right. I said something like the gravy train had left the station and our money was aboard. And that's the case.
Well, you said you had said very specifically, and again, somebody also brought up the thing with the piece of property that we're going to sell to the Humane Society. You know, that money you were going to put into the budget, you were going to use that $200,000 or whatever. You had the ability to use that money, and it seems to me like you're railing against their use of those funds when you stated unequivocally that you had already used it. So, and I'm not happy with their budget either. Okay, I'm very disappointed that the majority of this board came up with, a 10% increase. And I have one more question. You stated in the conversation, it wasn't really stated, and I'm a little confused as to if there are now 2 budgets proposed. There were 3. Your initial budget.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then their revised budget, and then the second revised budget. Okay, if this budget today, which was 9-point-something%, is not voted on or is tabled, there was a previous budget that was, what, 4-point-something% increase in
Yes.
taxes?
7.
Which seems to me a little bit more reasonable, you know? It's half of, your proposal. And, so, I was wondering why you couldn't just go back to that budget and, as a compromise between a 0% and 10%, 4-point-something% sounds like a legitimate compromise.
Just to answer your question, the reason for that is, number one, because the supervisor said we needed money in our legal fund, because there's a possibility we may be involved in litigation with, over MS4 money. So
That was
we had-
$25,000, Bob,
I
not,
thought you said it was
5%,
25,000.
not
And the
200.
other thing was, we also anticipated laying off another highway department worker, which after consulting with the highway superintendent, basically said that there's no way he could function. So we restored another highway department worker back. So that's the difference.
Still doesn't mean anything to me, okay?
If you want your
And I-
street,
and I wanna
if you
say
want your
something.
street plowed in the wintertime, it may.
Well, you know something? Quite honestly, if they plowed it one less time in the middle of the night, and, if they didn't go up the street 15 times and they went up 14 times, I wouldn't be so upset, okay? I have trouble sleeping. I'm up when they're plowing. They go right past my door. There's an intersection in my door. I hear them plowing all night long. And being honest with you, if they went up 14 times instead of 15 times, I wouldn't complain, okay? And I want to take a little bit of exception with Mr. Gross at the flippant way that he's putting $3, $4, $5 in taking out of everybody's pocket. I got a 0% increase last year in my cost of living, and I'm getting a 0% increase in my cost of living this year. $3, $4, $5 a month or whatever is not minuscule to me. It's a reduction. I'm being reduced in my buying power, okay? And I'd like to spend a little less on my town.
Could I just answer that? If I appeared flippant, I apologize. That was not my intention. My intention was to show what a 9% budget actually means to the residents at a particular assessment. That was all. Putting it in terms of actual dollars, I thought was a better explanation than just saying it's 9 point whatever. That was the only reason.
But you get upset when Dwight Yee talks about going for a penny for a gallon of gas, okay? The analogy is the same, one way or the other. Your analogy is that it's okay to pay $3, $4, $5 more. His analogy is we don't want to pay a cent more, okay?
It's not okay. We're in a bind here. I would like a zero as much as anyone here. We're in a bind here. We've explained about the
Let's pass the
extra
zero.
costs, the
I
loss
just
in
think we need to
revenue.
work a
So
little
that's where we're
harder.
coming from.
I think you guys need to work a little
I
harder.
mean, we did, every one of us are taxpayers up here. We pay a lot of taxes just like you do. None of us want to pay more in taxes. But, we're faced with unfunded mandates, and we're faced with essential services. Do we want a library? A lot of people want a library.
Yes, they do.
Right, so I mean, that,
But there are.
Okay, what I like to do, I know it's getting late, we've talked,
Okay.
what I like to do is make a motion at this time. And I want to make a motion that we defer this budget vote this evening, bring the town board back on Saturday with the hopes of presenting So I make a motion that we defer this vote this evening with the hopes that this town board can come back with a budget on Saturday, which will be acceptable to this community at this time. And I'm looking for a second on that.
I second.
I have a question.
Roll call vote, please,
No,
Ruth.
I have a question on public hearings, the
Discussion.
budgets and all that. And do we need a...
You have to have a discussion.
Is that legal?
No, you have to have a discussion. Go ahead, Roger.
Well, I'm just questioning, you have to make notice of budgets and hearings and so forth. And Will, do we legally have to publish this, announce meetings so many weeks ahead of time and so forth?
Now, with respect to this final draft budget,
I was asking
we just
the
had a
attorney.
public hearing. Go ahead, Will.
As quickly as possible. It has to be posted, but there's no requirement that it be posted any number of days in advance. It's an emergency meeting. will be a special meeting for this particular purpose.
So I amend my motion then to have it posted immediately following this meeting, that we have to defer the vote for the budget meeting and have a special meeting on this Saturday at a time convenient to this town board, hopefully like 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, so we don't ruin everyone's Saturday.
Sure, and that's procedural. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Ruth.
No, we're not done with the discussion yet, just so that it's important that everyone know that this budget has been worked on extensively, and the only differences that I see that would be made is that we would eliminate the library, the museum, and that's it. That's all we can do at this point. We would
And
have to
possibly one
eliminate
other
that.
highway
We cannot eliminate the assessor's office. There is no one to replace the assessor's office. There is no one to replace the tax receiver's office. So we cannot eliminate that. The only thing that we're going to be able to do is to eliminate the library and the museum. And I don't know if there's anyone here who can tell us whether or not they want the library and the museum eliminated, but that is about the only thing that can happen differently. This is, I don't know how many of you, once again, looked at the actual budget, looked at the actual pages, compared it to what we had last year, but there is nothing more that can be done, and there is no more revenue right at this point in time that can be produced. The supervisor is questioning the use of some revenue here. That is that fund that Andy was making reference to. I will tell you, if you eliminate that, then there will be no library, there will be no museum, and there will be very little else. But right now, this is about as bare bones as you can get, considering the fact that the library and the museum are included. And so, therefore, this is as part of the discussion for this motion, which is what I am doing right now. There is nothing, and right now we just have to have the discussion on the motion. I apologize, we can't have the public comment right now, we're just discussing the motion.
No, we're not going to close Rosemary.
No.
Rosemary can speak.
No, right now, we're just discussing this on the board
can have public
as part of
comment.
the Roberts rules.
Rosemary can speak. Rosemary is recognized by the chair. Rosemary, do you mind using the microphone?
Right now, I am in the middle of this discussion, and I would ask any of the other board members to please also discuss what they think, because right now, there is nothing other than that which can be eliminated out of this budget. And once again, you all need to look at this, compare it with the 2009 figures, the 2010, recognize the fact that there were no large tax increases like this back then simply because they were using those funds. I was not here, didn't use the funds, but right now, the only thing that can change is the elimination of those institutions
said that,
which were
that's
put
true.
in here.
Yes,
So
Rosemary.
therefore, and the Humane Society, too.
Thank you.
Yes, Rosemary.
But, my name again is Rosemary Kelly from Reed Farm. If we did not fund the library, we can use other libraries in Mayapack and so forth, so it wouldn't really be a tremendous hardship.
Actually, I
Let her
looked into
finish,
that.
please.
We can't.
Let her finish.
We can't.
But because...
Go ahead, Rosemary.
To have the library card, we're part of a Mid-Hudson library system.
Right.
And the library has to contribute into that. If we don't have a library, they won't be
I
contributing
believe there's
the
somebody
funds.
in Reed Farm,
That's not true.
Ann
How do
Sweet,
you know, Blake?
Because I have a library card.
she left?
Right here. I have a library card.
Go ahead, Rosemary.
Well, Ann Sweet lives in Reed Farm, which is Brewster, and she uses the Mayapack Library. So I don't really know. She has a card. I have a card for Mid-Hudson, so I'm pretty sure that you can go to Carmel, and Mayapack. But at
Yes, I
any
have a
rate,
library card also.
okay. At any rate, if we did to save money, reduce the tax percentage, if we did have to close the library and the museum, do you have an idea of what the percentage might drop down to? That's my only question.
Yes, it would be about, let's see,
$5.5.
$200,000
It's
in savings would be about
$220,000
$400,000.
So what would the percentage of
Pardon me,
increase
around
be? From
4%.
9,
5.5 it would run to
5.5?
about.
Well, you're cutting it right in half. I think that would, I know it won't please 100% of the people, but I think it would please a lot of people here if that is at all possible.
Okay, and I want a further discussion also after Ms. Hudak. When she says it's a bare bones budget, I don't believe it, because I sent an email out last Thursday, and it says, I continue to study the budget